Hello, I'm Mario Anderson, and welcome to In Focus Kentucky. Each week on this program, we take a look at issues that matter to you, talk directly with the lawmakers, community organizers, and people who help shape policies. On today's episode, we are sitting down with the leaders of the Democratic Party in the Kentucky House of Representatives and State Senate to find out what legislative priorities are on tap for their party during this 2019 General Assembly regular session. Now, for those who may not be aware, during odd number calendar years, the regular sessions are half as long as an even numbered year, so this year's legislative session is divided into two parts. Part 1 started back on January the 8th through January 11th. Lawmakers from both parties and both chambers spent the first 4 days of the 2019 session taking on many tasks, including electing legislative leaders, adopting rules of procedure, and organizing committees. Along with that, many new bills have been pre-filed by various lawmakers. Several high-profile bills have been introduced into committees or discussed in the House and Senate chambers, and some of those were medical marijuana, co-sponsored legislation, the school safety reform, and the fetal heartbeat bill. Part 2 of the session starts February the 5th, and despite the Republicans having supermajorities in both chambers of the legislature and the governor's office for the third year in a row, Democratic Party leaders say they are still focused on accomplishing many high priorities during this short session. Now, I spoke with House Minority Leader Rocky Atkins about this and also about his campaign to become Kentucky's next governor. We appreciate your time and joining us for a special taping of In Focus on the road here at the state capitol in Franklin.
Welcome to the state capitol. Honored to be with you today. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And let's talk about this session. The session kicked off during the first week of January, 30-day session. What are some of the top priorities that you're wanting your party to be able to address during this particular session?
You know, being in the minority, we have a special role here, but it's a very important role in my opinion, Ario. I think that without question, when you're in the minority, you're look to be the loyal opposition where needed, to be a voice for people that may not have a voice, but to also look for opportunities to reach across the aisle and compromise on issues like charter schools or the fixing of nonprofits. That was a bill that was passed in the tax reform bill, a provision that taxed nonprofits. So our caucus will have an agenda like we have in the past. You know, we're going to be a caucus that stands up for working families. We're going to talk a lot about public education. We think quality health care and accessible health care is important to Kentucky. We think the tax bill that was passed was an unfair tax bill. It raised taxes on 95% of Kentuckians and lowered the tax on 5%. We believe that was wrong. It taxed nonprofits. So to come in and do some cleanup things, I think is important. We believe the pension issue has been helped along greatly by the reforms we did in 2013 in a very bipartisan way. And if you look at the numbers don't lie. Over the last 2 years, the Kentucky retirement system has earned from its investments over $2.4 billion. Kentucky teacher retirement last year alone gained 18.4% in their earnings. So we believe that the reforms that were made in 2013 are working. They ought to be given the opportunity to work, and we ought to fund fully the pensions as we move forward. We're back on the right track. That's exactly what the pension boards have said as they said in committee rooms 2 weeks ago.
Well, in addition to your legislative priorities, you obviously have announced a bid to become Kentucky's next governor.
Yes, sir.
So how do you plan to spend your time with work here, with working on this legislation, but also on the campaign trail?
Well, I think Kentuckians are wanting somebody that has proven leadership. I think they want somebody that has that seasoned experience that it's going to take to get government back working for the people of Kentucky and communities across Kentucky. I think Kentuckians are looking for somebody they know can reach across the aisle and help grow the economy in ways we may have never talked about 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Our #1 export industry in Kentucky right now, it's not tobacco, it's not coal, it's not bourbon, it's not even cars. Our #1 export industry in the Commonwealth of Kentucky right now is the aerospace industry, an $11.7 billion export industry. And what an opportunity to diversify the economy of Kentucky, to build a 21st century economy with a 21st century workforce, an opportunity to attract an industry that needs 300 to 500,000 jobs over the next 15 to 20 years. Why do we have a shot? We're training that workforce here now. We're educating that workforce here now. Wouldn't it be nice to see a Boeing or a Lockheed Martin or a GE raise their hand and say, I'm going to the river counties of West Kentucky where people have lost their jobs from the assembly lines or the coal fields of eastern Kentucky, say, we're going there. And we're going to put those people back to work. We're going to put those coal miners and those railroad workers and those steel workers and those folks that grab that hard hat and that dinner bucket every day, we're going to put them back to work in a 21st century economy and be trained to do a 21st century workforce to go with it. That's my vision. I think that's where Kentucky needs to go in the future.
Well, I know that we'll talk with you more again as we get closer to that primary season, but
yes.
Also we'll continue to be in touch with you as this legislative session goes forward.
Well, we're honored to have you here today. Thank you all for allowing the people of Kentucky to see what is going on in their house. Appreciate you.
You bet. Stay with us on In Focus Kentucky. Coming up next, you'll hear from Senate Minority Leader Morgan McGarvey to learn more about legislation his caucus is interested in calling to the floor this session.
We all want our kids to go to safe schools. I've got twin first graders at St. Matthew's Elementary. I used to do tornado drills when I was in elementary school. We do active shooter drills. So we've got to have a better system in place.
But stay tuned, your local weather on the One's forecast is coming up after this break.